Good morning. My name is Zhenrui Liao from Columbia University, and today I'll be presenting a different perspective on epilepsy through the lens of a more general phenomenon affecting randomly connected networks. So just some quick background on epilepsy. It's a broad class of neurological disorders characterized by seizures with a lifetime prevalence of up to 2 to 4%. And the motivating question behind this work is, why is epilepsy so common? I like to think about this question through the lens of the potential etiologies of epilepsy. It turns out that almost any insult or perturbation of the brain can cause chronic epilepsy, including the genetic epilepsies, but also including things like trauma, stroke, infection, even a seizure. There's a well-known chicken and egg problem between seizures and epilepsy, in the sense that a person with no predisposition to epilepsy who has a seizure of any cause, for example, a febrile seizure of childhood, is now at markedly increased risk of developing the disease. And what this tells me is that epilepsy is not simply a disease of anatomy alone, or a disease of a single gene or single pathway, but a disease of network organization, a disease of computation. And the question this work aims to answer is, what is the contribution of local network organization, of networks on the order of thousands of neurons, to epilepsy? So to approach this problem, we use the formalism of random graph theory, specifically of Erdős-Rényi graphs. And the motivation behind this comes from development, that during development, there is a high-level plan for the organization of the brain, but local networks end up being randomly connected based on local information. And the Erdős-Rényi graph is basically a generative process for the organization of a local network. In neural terms, suppose you have n neurons, then every possible pair is a potential synapse, and every synapse forms with some probability p, independently and identically distributed. Using this formalism, we can then develop dynamical models of how networks compute using random graphs. So we introduce two models. The first model is a naive linear model that we use to build some intuition, where we define epilepsy to be the regime where the total activity of the network grows without bound. And in this model, we're able to establish by mathematical analysis, as well as by simulation, that there is a trade-off between the functionality of the network and the excitability of the network. More precisely, that if we allow the synapses to all have non-zero channel capacity, then the network as a whole, with overwhelming probability, has the potential to support pathological excitation. Then we examine a slightly less trivial nonlinear model based on a threshold, and we find much of the same theme, that a parameter set that allows the network to maintain any level of activity is also capable of supporting pathological excitation in the sense of the entire network eventually becoming active. So to summarize, what we've found is that there is a tension between excitability and functionality in randomly connected networks. Or to put it a different way, that of all the potential configurations of local networks, the overwhelming majority of the ones that are functional also can support pathological excitation. And so the question that I want to leave you with is not, why is epilepsy so common, but why is epilepsy so uncommon? If almost all randomly organized networks have the potential to support pathological excitation, why don't more of us experience it on a day-to-day basis? And this is the subject of our ongoing work, but some ideas that we have are that there's some plasticity mechanism involved in keeping us off of the out of epileptic space and on a small non-epileptic manifold. And this plasticity process probably looks different from the ones that we're familiar with, such as Hebbian plasticity. We can predict that excitotoxicity may be this process. Even though we generally think of excitotoxicity as a deleterious process, in this case, it could be that the pathways that are excitable and the neurons that are forming hubs of excitation are being killed, which allows the network to remain in a non-epileptic state. Thank you for listening, and if you're interested in this work, please come talk to me at my poster. I look forward to seeing you at the conference.